Before we start, don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's reach 3,000 likes and write a comment. And thanks to everyone who supported the channel. In fact, the dwarf realm is less challenging compared to the other two options, and the creatures you'll encounter here are mainly orcs. If you're a player with a current level exceeding 20, handling them should be a breeze. However, only Ryu, who was a regressor, knew this, and the players who had chosen the Dwarf Guild were stepping into the unknown in terms of difficulty, and it was evident from the tension on their faces. Then one player inquired, "Hey, where did our nicknames go?" Another said, "Yeah, I can't yours either." Their normally displayed nicknames had mysteriously vanished. However, some players seemed unfazed by this, and one player inquired, "Aren't they being too calm about this? Doesn't that make them look suspicious as traitors?" Ryu, although inwardly composed, couldn't help but adopt an expression of surprise. Once suspicion arose about being a traitor, it tended to linger, and he said to himself, "I need to be cautious and avoid arousing suspicion. Of course, if the traitor group exposes my identity, it's game over." While others might not recognize him, there was no doubt that the infamous Black Scythe's face was known within the traitor group. And he added, "If they even think about it, I will deal with them before they start spreading rumors about me being a traitor. I'll simply intervene if they try to expose me." As Ryu surveyed the area, he made a rough estimate of the number of players who had chosen the Dwarf Guild, and he said to himself, "It looks like around 200 players have chosen for the Dwarf Guild." Of course, this figure excluded the traitors, so the actual count of assembled players would be around 230. But suddenly, a message materialized before the players. "Escort the Dwarf Guild. Safely accompany the Dwarf Guild to its destination. Successful escort results in experience point rewards for all participants. Those who contribute significantly to eliminating traitors will receive sub-quest rewards. If all traitors are eliminated, additional rewards will be granted to everyone." This quest was not exclusive to the regular group. Even the traitor group could earn experience points by successfully However, it was highly unlikely that the traitors would cooperate willingly. Failure this time would drastically reduce their success rate in the next summit, especially if they reach the human summit. And if the traitor group failed to complete the mission from the dwarves to the elves, they would face the daunting task of stopping the human guild, which was most difficult. In addition to suffering a 20% stat drop twice, they probably think it's an impossible feat. But Ryu was confident, and he said to himself, "Experiencing a 20% stat reduction twice won't impede my hunting. Moreover, this debuff vanishes after this round." While Ryu focused on the progress window, the other players were in awe. Current participant count: participants, 230, traitors, 29. One player inquired, "What's going on? Why can we see the number of traitors?" In fact, the participant count was displayed for all to see. Then another inquired, "Are there really 29 traitors among us?" And players exchanged suspicious glances. While they couldn't see each other's nicknames and couldn't identify each other, one thing was clear. Among them, there are 29 traitors, no doubt. Well, Ryu, who knew their faces, could easily identify the traitors. At that moment, a voice pretending familiarity caught Ryu's attention. It was none other than Min Juri, and she said, "Oh, Black Scythe? Wow! I never expected to run into you here. Did you choose the Dwarf Guild? You didn't follow me, did you?" Seeing her overwhelming joy, Ryu couldn't resist complimenting her and said, "Well, your buffs are quite handy." However, it seemed that his response held a slightly different significance for Min Juri. Her sudden blush and flustered expression gave it away, and in haste, Min Juri blurted out, yeah. "But, Black Scythe, why can't we see the players' nicknames?" Ryu replied, "Well, I'm not sure." Ryu pretended not to know and turned his head, only to lock eyes with one of the traitors, and that player grinned ominously, then looked away. Reading his thoughts, it seemed he wanted to act like he knew him due to the camaraderie of being in the same group. Then Ryu said to himself, "Crazy, are they really trying to reveal that they're in the same group?" And Ryu couldn't express his frustration openly, so all that came out was an incredulous laugh. Then Min Juri said, "There are 230 players at the Dwarf Guild. It's fewer than I expected." Ryu said, "Yeah, true. With just 230 out of 2,166 participants, it was undoubtedly a smaller number. This meant that the remaining 90% had gathered in the other two guilds. It was clear evidence that the Dwarf Guild wasn't very popular, and Ryu said to himself, most likely the Human Guild has the most players. It was the same before. But suddenly, someone who recognized the Black Scythe approached cautiously and said, Black Scythe? Ryu said, C.O. Aaron? C.O. Aaron, with a pleasantly surprised look, greeted Ryu with a warm smile and said, I didn't expect to meet you here. It's really nice. But Seo Aaron's gaze naturally shifted to Minjuri, who was standing next to Ryu. Her smile disappeared as if it were a lie, and inquired, Minjuri is here too. Minjuri smiled and said, Seo Aaron? Hello, it's nice to see you, she said. Yes. Unlike Minjuri, Seo Aaron's reaction was less enthusiastic. It was probably because she had noticed that Minjuri always seemed to be with the Black Scythe, and it had caught her attention. It was only natural to have a fondness for the Black Scythe, who had saved her, but it shouldn't go beyond that. Strangely, she felt a twinge of jealousy towards Minjuri. Then Ryu asked, by the way, where's the person who used to always be with you? She said, oh, Kyung-ho, no, and Sang Cheol went to the Human Guild. Ryu inquired, the Human Guild? And when Ryu asked with a puzzled expression, Seo Aaron also looked unsure, and she said, for some reason he really wanted to go there. He replied calmly, I see, but secretly, Ryu was surprised and said to himself, even though I said it's the most difficult level, going to the Human Guild, unexpected. Did he want to hunt stronger monsters and earn more experience? Ryu wondered if he had underestimated Ansang Cheol. Just then, a rumbling sound caught their attention, and they turned to see a procession of wagons approaching. There weren't many wagons, just 10 in total, which was more than enough for 230 players. The players felt relieved that there were fewer wagons than expected because it meant they could easily keep track of the ones they needed to protect. Eventually, the wagons came to a halt, and the dwarf, just as they had imagined, stepped down from one of the wagons, chuckling heartily, and said, welcome, I am Heimer, the blacksmith of the Dwarf Guild. It seems like you are the warriors from other realms who will be escorting us. Is that correct? The players nodded in agreement, and Heimer enthusiastically clapped his hands together and said, I knew my intuition wasn't wrong. You all have a different aura from the ordinary thieves group. And with a hearty laugh, Heimer pointed at the wagons and said, the cargo here consists of various ores and metal materials, which must be transported to the Albit's kingdom beyond the Karago Mountains. However, the road is infested with monsters, so we had no choice but to seek help from a higher power, the divine. Despite being a language they had never heard before, the players understood the dwarf's words, and they could only understand it due to a message that appeared. Round feature, translation activated. You can now communicate with beings from other realms. In fact, in a world where angels had already become part of the landscape, whether beings from other realms were real or not, no longer held significant weight. For the players, it was a matter of fulfilling quests and moving forward. However, Ryu understood that this wasn't such a straightforward affair, and he said to himself, this is round 8, our first encounter with beings from other realms. It's crucial to start building a positive reputation now so that we can receive future benefits when interacting with these races. Most players would simply pass by and not pay much attention to their relationships with beings from other realms. But Ryu knew better, and he said to himself, the beings from other realms won't be limited to just this round. They'll continue to appear, and the reputation we establish now will carry over. This is why making a good first impression was essential. If they started with a bad reputation, turning it around wouldn't be easy. In this regard, the traitor group was a hindrance. And would they kill the dwarves to prevent the summit's arrival? If they did, their reputation would plummet. And Ryu added, if that happens, not only will unnecessary fights erupt when we meet the dwarves later, but we'll also be at a disadvantage in receiving various benefits. In fact, dwarves were known to provide legendary-level weapons and divine materials, among other valuable rewards. No sensible player would want to miss out on such advantages by clashing with the dwarves. But the traitors don't know that, so their eyes were full with murderous intent, and wherever Ryu looked, the traitors were watching the dwarves intently, ready to strike at any opportunity. However, the traitors were aware of the consequences. Killing dwarves in front of other players would undoubtedly label them as traitors. So, they could only bide their time, unable to act recklessly, contemplating when would be the best moment to eliminate the dwarves. Then Ryu added, "Ideally, it's best to assassinate them discreetly. There were a total of 20 dwarves at the Dwarf Guild, with 2 in each wagon. If they succeeded in eliminating all the dwarves, it would result in a victory for the traitor group. However, if even one dwarf survives, it will be considered a failure, and in that case, the traitor group would be forced to target the next guild, the Elf Guild, known for its specialization in elemental magic." And Ryu said to himself, "It's easier to target dwarves with no combat abilities than elves who can manipulate elemental energy with their magic." While contemplating these thoughts, a dwarf shouted loudly, "Guys, don't forget to like and subscribe."